Hi guys, welcome to or back to my channel. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of new viewers in this video. I'm not an intro person. I literally sat there and I was ready to go, welcome back geniuses to the Female Genius podcast, because I have a podcast and I'm gonna say it a million times. But it feels weird to sit in this position and be doing a very, very different style of video. So where this came from, I'm gonna give the quickest intro of my life. So when I was 16 during lockdown, I was so bored that I made my own DC universe. I extrapolated from some of the comics I love, some of the animated universes that DC had created I loved, and I put together like around three phases of stories that I really wanted to be told. And I largely left unfinished. And about a few months ago, I was on TikTok and I thought, this is a funny little video to share. And unbeknownst, I woke up one morning and comments were flooded. Everybody was like, we need part two, we need to keep this going, please tell me more, can you continue it? And it's wormed its way into a hobby in my life. I already do world building as a hobby and build up my own universes with maps and laws and systems, so I think it's just a different version of that hobby. And so I've loved that I've been able to bring people so much joy with this mini little crazy, like so unserious like hobby that I have. I mean, I've been getting DMs and in the comments of people being like, because of your video I have now watched all the animated series. I've been going and reading and buying comics and getting into comic books, and as somebody that just loves sharing and getting people in love with what she also loves, that is making me the happiest in the world. But a very common ask amongst TikTok was for me to make a YouTube video version of the whole thing so they could binge watch it, or like just one place for everything to collectively be watching. And given the fact that, you know, certain political figures are threatening to like stop TikTok like in America every few minutes, I was like, okay, let me get on it and create this centralized place. And I also love long form content as well. Obviously, like I've said, I've had a podcast and I've posted a couple times on this channel before, but on TikTok, I'm rushing. I'm like, and so, and then Batman comes in and blah, 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 and we have to move on to the next one because I have 10 minutes left on the timeline. In this video, we'll be doing phase 1, phase 2, but I will say I have made some changes and edits to phase 1 and phase 2 and some parts of phase 3, less so because I made phase 3 like a month ago. Whereas phase 1 and phase 2, I made when I was like a teenager. So I have made a lot of edits given the direction I kind of want my brain to go. And obviously the natural disclaimer, I do not own any of these characters. A lot of these storylines are inspired largely like so much so from the comics. And I have people asking me like, oh my God, I love this story, I wish I could read it. Like, you can. Okay, you can. It's like in the comments. I've just put it in together in a way where it would make sense as a movie universe. So that's my massive disclaimer. And let's not take things too seriously, guys. It's a little bit of fun. The way the structure of this video is going to work is I'm going to do all of phase 1, and then I'm going to answer like the most common questions, the most common queries that I tend to get when I was making this in comments. Bear in mind, I have changed quite a few things. Not quite a few, but like enough in phase 1. So the first movie and the most divisive movie in my phase 1 is a Flashpoint movie. And this follows typical New 52 Flashpoint comic book line and is very, very similar to the animated movie. So if you find yourself enjoying the storyline and think, oh, interesting, then definitely check out the animated movie. But I have added some pieces and bits to make it make sense. So like this begins standard. Flash is waking up in an alternate timeline, you know, and then he's going around and he's realizing his mother is alive and well and his father is dead. If you know the Flash's origin story, and we'll get it seen and presented in this movie, because again, the whole point of Flashpoint to me is that we are learning about these heroes in a way where it's not boring. Like, we're thrown in the middle of an action, but we get to learn about who these heroes are by seeing the reflection in Barry Allen's eyes and how they've changed in Flashpoint and how they've expected to be. So we learn about the Flash's origin story by him realizing that his mother is alive and well and his father is dead. In reality, his mom gets murdered and his dad is charged for the murder, even though Barry knows his dad didn't do it. So, and like he's going around and like there is no concept of Flash. He doesn't have his powers. There is no version of the Justice League. He tries to find Iris. Iris, aka his girl, doesn't know who he is. Iris is with her nephew, Wally. Wally's also like, who is this crazy man? I do not know who he is either. And he's left with this memory of another timeline, which are slowly fading away. But he knows that something is the cause of this altered world. Like something's going wrong and he's the only person who's aware of it. Okay. In this world, Amazonians and Atlanteans are in serious conflict, and this is a brewing tension that is sending the world into fear of some World War II. Also, Superman does not exist in this world at all. And so he thinks, okay, who do I need to find that is going to help me figure out this issue? I need to find whatever version of Batman exists in this timeline. And so he goes and seeks Batman for help, but then discovers that Batman is not Bruce Wayne like we expect, it's Thomas Wayne, his father, because instead of Thomas Wayne and his mother, Martha Wayne, being murdered in that alleyway on that fateful day, right, it was Bruce and his mom. So Thomas Wayne eventually takes on the mantle of Batman. And so Thomas Wayne at first is a little bit skeptical, but then ends up believing Barry and says, okay, like, how can we help you get your powers and how can we help you fix this? During trying to help Barry get his powers, we then learn a little bit more about this alternate timeline beyond just the changes in superheroes. Thomas Wayne mentions this world is always on the verge of falling apart. You know, first of all, some demon shows off a couple years ago, flipping zombies and people coming back from the dead. But like this conflict between the Amazonians and the Atlanteans might be the thing that sends people over the edge. We also learned that before Thomas Wayne took on the mantle of Batman, he used to be known as something called Owlman as part of a group called the Syndicate. And originally the Syndicate was formed of superpowered or highly motivated individual and heroes to try and protect the world from all of these impending threats. But ultimately they were crushed and a lot of the Syndicate members died or went into hiding, and he changed his role from Owlman to Batman. Right. He then realizes the Reverse Flash Eobard Thawne, as we expect him, as we know him, is operating in this world. And originally Barry's like, oh my God, this is 100% Eobard Thawne's doing. He's messing with me. Like this Reverse Flash is messing with me. And then after getting his powers back, he goes and confronts Eobard Thawne. Eobard Thawne actually says, this is not my doing. Barry, this is yours. And it's Barry's fault because he tried to go back in time to prevent his mother's death. But Barry learns a lesson about the importance and the concept of time and protecting time, and that you can't always go back and fix the mistakes because it really affects the future in which you exist there. Right. Anyway, as million people are about to die, the conflict is heating up, especially. Thomas tells Barry, you need to correct the timeline. Like these level of threats, the things that they're facing, the fact that they can't handle it shows that this timeline is not meant to exist. And so Thomas tells Barry he needs to correct the timeline. And Thomas thanks Barry for giving his second chance. Before he tries to correct the timeline, him and Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, are fighting because the Reverse Flash is like, you can't go and correct the timeline. Fights. Flash obviously wins. He then goes back in time and then resets the timeline. Barry then wakes up in a similar way to the beginning of the movie with the timeline fully corrected and everything pretty much is back to normal. So the post-credit scene is Barry is detailing the events to Bruce and tells him about his father. And Bruce appreciates hearing about his father, but warns Barry about the dangers of affecting the timeline. To which Barry's like, I know, like, you don't have to tell me, I fucked up, sorry. Bruce then gets an alert from his phone. He then makes a call and says, Dick, meet me in the coordinates I'm about to send you now. Bruce leaves and Barry watches the news in which they are discussing the Grayson family dying in the Halle Circus fire and how the killer Tony Zuko was recently brought to justice. The second movie in my phase 1 is a Batman movie, Batman War of Jokes and Riddles. Low-key, this is my favorite movie in phase 1. I love this movie, okay? And I think the movie starts off with Jonathan Crane, who is a professor at Gotham University, and he specializes in teaching the psychology of fear. And in this moment, he's narrating about the concept of fear, providing like almost this philosophical depiction of it. And this idea that heroes are almost the same as villains, they're just trying to instill fear in a different group of people. Okay, so we then see Batman approaching Jim Gordon, like cutaway scene. And so Batman and Jim Gordon is the police commissioner, the chief of police, I don't know what you call it in different places, and the chief of police in Gotham City. And they're just discussing with local crimes and how crimes is on the rise, even for Gotham. Because, you know, Gotham is a place where rent is so low because crime is so high. Like it's riddled with crime, okay? And so, but Jim Gordon says, like, this is actually getting a lot of the GCPD handle and it's, like, not normal. Batman then leaves, in which he goes back to Wayne Manor and he's talking with Dick Grayson, who further comments on the strangeness of it all and observes how these crimes could possibly be connected. Dick is basically trying to say, Batman, like, let me help you. Like, I can figure this out. Like, you've trained me. I'm a good detective, with Dick taking on the mantle as Robin. But Batman decides to leave Dick out of it to continue to further investigate the claims that Dick has brought to the table, much to Grayson's dismay, as he feels like Batman doesn't trust him and only leaves him with petty thieves or like not serious crimes. Okay. During his investigations, Batman discovers a note left by the Riddler, and he's like, oh my god, is this guy all up to his old antics again? And he soon then becomes to realize that this message wasn't left to Batman. It wasn't even left to the GCPD or the city. It was directed to the Joker. It was a joke to taunt the Joker, who apparently now can no longer laugh. He hasn't laughed in a long time. He starts to realize that it's like the war and all of these crimes happening in the city is a war against the Joker and the Riddler and a lot of the different villains within Gotham City, rather than something that they're doing intentionally to impact the city itself. The city is just collateral damage. And so the Joker begins to launch his counterattack, killing many people in the process with like this absolute ruthlessness. Okay. And a villain known as the Scarecrow also begins to terrorize Joker's forces and not so accidentally subjects Dick, or Robin in this case, to his fear venom. And so in order to receive the antidote and stop the war in the city, Batman is ultimately forced to go against the GCPD and join a criminal side, signing with the Riddler in exchange for an antidote for this poison. Then reunited with Catwoman, who basically reveals like, you know, like a lot of these criminals aren't even doing this because like we're into it. Like we're getting a huge payout from this as well. So alluding to the fact there are some political, like there's some movements here. Like there's more to it than meets the eye to pure ruthlessness. And I also think it adds this commentary of some villains aren't villains in the sense that they're pure evil and they're like crazy, like the Joker or the Riddler. Some of them are just like, this is just a very easy, quick cash grab. So very interesting. Batman, along with the Riddler and his forces, destroy all of the Joker's forces until only the Joker is left. And with the help of now the cured from the poison, Grayson, and the GCPD, they turn on the Riddler and arrest his army, with many villains fleeing, but Catwoman, the Riddler, and Penguin are captured. Riddler then reveals the reason why he did this is to solve the riddle on how to make the Joker laugh again. Batman is absolutely furious like at the Riddler, and he's like, why would you put so many people in danger just to make that motherfucker laugh again? Okay. And he's like punching him, he's like beating him up, blah 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 blah. And then we see Joker, who's now defeated, right? He's watching from the roof and then just begins manically laughing. Batman realizes what he's doing. He's like almost beating the Riddler to death. And if you know, Batman's one rule is that we do not kill. We don't kill. And so the Joker was so happy that this whole thing brought Batman almost to the point, like almost to breaking point. And so Batman like immediately stops. He's like performing first aid on the Riddler to try and save his life. And the Joker laughs again and disappears, claiming he will be back again. The movie ends with Bruce going through multiple theories of like who the Joker is, where this Joker must come from. And Grayson tells Bruce that they have received an alert from Superman requesting his help in Metropolis City. Bruce at first tells Robin, like, you can't come with me to Metropolis City. Grayson is protesting. And it's like this kind of heartwarming moment between them because Bruce reveals that he's trying to protect Grayson from seeing so much darkness and like bad things in the world. And Dick is like, well, I've already seen so much darkness and how bad the world can be, and I'm motivated to prevent other people from seeing what he has seen, echoing a line that Jonathan Crane said at the beginning of the movie about fear. They then begin to head to Metropolis City together. The post-credit scene is the Joker sipping tea in Arkham Asylum, singing the riddle while he dips the picture of the Riddler in acid, saying the talons are coming. Wink, wink. The third movie in my phase one is a Green Lantern origin movie. Okay, pretty spanking. We meet Hal Jordan. He's like this fearless, energetic, like reckless kid, but unfortunately he sees his dad die in a plane crash, but refusing to let that like consume him. He also wants to figure out why his dad loves flying so much. And so despite the fear that he feels because of seeing his dad die, he still continues to try and follow his father's footsteps and becomes a military test pilot and engineer, despite him feeling intense fear and flashbacks to his father's death every time he flew. We're taken to like a present day. Hal Jordan is living his life. He has a strong sense of moral code, right? And he fully like believes like, you know, I'm going to do what's right no matter what. He's in a situation where an officer is blatantly racist towards a new black recruit in the army. Hal eventually beats him up, and for it he's discharged from the military. So like now he just kind of doesn't have a job, and he's kind of like, existential crisis, what am I going to do? But I don't regret what I did. At that point, he's then abducted by Sir, who basically wants to make him a Green Lantern for Earth and explains the whole concept of the Lantern Corps and importance. So all of that precedence will be set in the movie, which is why I need. He's then summoned to training on Oa Oa, and he is assigned to be mentored by Sinestro, and they become good friends, and Hal really looks up to him. They save Earth from multiple different threats, earning notoriety as a Green Lantern on Earth. And, despite Hal's recklessness, like, his heart is in the right place, and he just really wants to save and help people. They returns to Sinestro's home planet, and Hal discovers the unjust tactics employed by Sinestro to keep his people in control. Very dictatorship, the way Sinestro is treating his home planet. People are starving, people are being abused, people are unjustly locked up. The justice system is just like all over the place. And so Hal is so disillusioned by this, and him alongside some other Green Lanterns that we meet when we're learning about the Lantern Corps fight Sinestro to free his home planet from the dictatorship of Sinestro. And in the final fight, Hal questions his moral standing, and why would Sinestro do that to these people that he's supposed to protect? And Sinestro cites that his form of order is the only way to guaranteed peace, and we get this flashback explaining why Sinestro employed these tactics. Due to the high praise he received from being a Green Lantern, he became increasingly stressed with keeping his sector as perfect and as ordered as he needed it to be. Sinestro slowly became more unhinged and started employing more questionable tactics in his behavior. Hal eventually defeats Sinestro, delivering him to the hands of the Guardians of Oa, in which Hal testifies against him, and Sinestro is stripped of his Green Lantern ring and banished to Cord. The movie ends with Hal on Earth, with him, Barry, and Arthur chilling in a bar together and making jokes and enjoying each other's company. They then all get an alert of a threat in Star City, causing them to run out and group up with other members of the Justice League. So this post-credit scene, we see Sinestro standing in a cave lit dim yellow, with a few people raising their fists to the sky, and you see them wearing yellow rings. They then repeat the chant, "In the blackest day, in the brightest night, beware your fears made into light. Let those who try to stop what's right burn like his power, Sinestro's might." So then there is another post-credit scene. Yeah, why can't I have two? Okay, and so we see Diana, aka Wonder Woman, telling Bruce that he should, just talking, general talking, all of these different things. Bruce brushes it off and pulls up an image of this box, in which he asks Diana if she knows what it is. Diana responds with, "That's Pandora's box," and says this is in the realm of magic. Bruce curses and says that he needs to make a trip across the pond to Liverpool. Wink, wink. So the major changes in this phase 1 is I have gotten rid of the Justice League movie that was originally there. If you want to hear about it, it's on my TikTok in its original format, with phase 1 in its original form. But let's talk about phase 1 for a little second. And this video is sponsored by nothing. I just let me break. So let's talk a little bit. So first and foremost, the biggest change to the way I originally imagined phase 1 is there was going to be a Justice League movie at the end of this phase. And the reason why I got rid of it was I understand why people said they needed a little bit more build up. And I was at first I was Rush, I don't really, I kind of want to be thrown into the action. And I was actually, what is the most important thing from this movie that I kind of wanted to take away? And honestly, I was this part could just be a post-credit scene from the other movie, which was Diana and Bruce talking about Pandora's box and basically entering this idea of we're going into the realm of magic in the DC universe, that this is part of our lexicon, this is something that impacts and affects our DC universe. And so I was the rest of the Justice League movie, it was just it'd be cool to see all of these characters interact. But I was I actually kind of understand, we can wait a little bit. There's time and there's a place, and I don't think it's now. So completely agree with you. Another question I got so commonly was that people were so 50-50 about having Flashpoint as the first movie. And this is one, the Justice League movie, I was I hear you guys out. This one, I stand 10 fucking toes behind. I need to stop swearing. I stand 10 toes behind this Flashpoint movie. So number one, again, I explained this a little bit in the beginning. I wanted a way to introduce a bunch of characters, hit us right in the action with a movie that's really interesting, a movie that has a point, in a way that's just I don't feel like we have to do a solo movie for every single member of the Justice League before we do a Justice League movie. That is a matter of good storytelling, and you should be able to care and love and feel something for the characters based off of really good story and script writing and framing and filmmaking. You don't need, this is the Marvelification of cinema. You don't need crazy amounts of context. And I know that contradicts the Justice League movie, but the Justice League movie was just there, I originally think, because I was going in a very different direction in my head when I was 16. And now that I've posited and spun everything, I was actually, now I'm going in this direction. This doesn't need to be there at this current moment of time, Another point of the Flashpoint movie, I've been trying to figure out a way to describe this. And if you are a One Piece fan, I make the Flashpoint movie akin to the arc Skypiea. I'll explain it for people that aren't One Piece fans in a second. But there's an arc in One Piece in Skypiea, and when you watch it, it's kind of like, oh, like it's like Skypiea is like nobody's favorite arc in the beginning, especially if you have no spoilers and like you're watching it for the first time. It's kind of an arc that feels very random. It has a slightly different tone. It has a bunch of different characters and villains that were like, why are we here? Like Skypiea is an arc that is enjoyable to watch, but low-key doesn't make sense for all of the story and plot building that we've been doing for so long. But the more you watch One Piece, the more Skypiea ages so well. Like it's an arc that just, the more you learn about the universe by going through One Piece, the more you're like, oh my God, Skypiea. Oh my God, it runs back to, like, everything kind of connects to the Skypiea. And there's so many Easter eggs and clues and mysteries laid the foundation in Skypiea that we just don't consider until 2, 3, 4 arcs later. Like even now, we're like 700 episodes past Skypiea, and it's still so relevant, and even more relevant today in the One Piece like storyline that it was. Like it just keeps getting relevant. And so I wanted a Flashpoint movie that like I wanted the first movie of my universe to age that way. Like the more you watch, the more you're like, oh my God, Flashpoint. Oh my God, Flashpoint. And then if you were to ever rewatch, you're like, oh my God, I never noticed that. I never noticed that. And so I've added some things. If you are a comic book fan, some of you will know where I'm going. Some of the teasers are like so obvious and on the nose, but then a lot of it is just setting the stage, setting the scene. It's just a movie that I think ages so well throughout time. That is like the biggest thing I have to say. Yeah. And I think it's also a similar approach almost to the War of Jokes and Riddles. I think, again, Batman is a story that has been told. Batman's origin story has been told so many times, and arguably so well. Batman movies are honestly one of the greatest superhero movies in terms of like cinema and filmmaking story. Like I don't think I've ever watched a bad one. Like they all tend to be like Batman solo movies. Like for example, like Matt Reeves' Batman, obviously Christopher Nolan's Batman, the Dark Knight. Like they all tend to be told really well. So I was like, okay, we don't need that. But I was like, oh, what's a cool way to explore Gotham? And I feel like a lot of my universe is developing Gotham around Batman. And that's why I introduced Dick so early, because now then you'll start to slowly see we've been introduced to Jim Gordon. We've been introduced to like Catwoman, the Riddler, the Joker, the Penguin. Like you just get oriented of how Gotham works really quickly. And that is super important to me going forward, rather than just solely just developing his character. But of course that is developed too. Okay, let's move on to phase 2. Which is actually low-key my favorite phase. Even though I finished phase 4, I'm like, phase 2? Yeah,